Hello, everybody. I'm Carrie Wilt, a speaker, writer, and a heart cultivator with a soul full of sunshine who is on a mission to help you flourish. That's because not long ago, I looked down and discovered that my life had become an overplanted mess that was choking out my relationships, my creativity, and purpose. I was irritable, exhausted, and watering everything else but myself. That's when some soul-searching journal time and a late-night rereading of my great-great-grandmother's classic, The Secret Garden, unearthed this well-tended life truth, that every locked-up, weed-filled, withering life can bloom and grow again with the help of just a little magic. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of magic that needs a wand and a trick-top hat. I'm talking about a dig in, make room, prune away, work on, water well, weed, and feed your soul kind of life-tending magic that I can't wait to share with you here on this podcast. And here's another truth. A well-tended life is not a set it and forget it life, nor is it a perfect life. It's worked on every single day, in the sunshine and through the storms. And the truth is, what worked in our life gardens last season may not work in the next. That's why here at the Well-Tended Life podcast, we'll be interviewing people who have grown and bloomed true in a variety of seasons and are willing to share their well-tended wisdom and weed-whacking advice with us. So, meet me back here each week and we'll dig in together to discover what's keeping you locked up tighter than the secret garden and unearth the tools that'll keep you growing and blooming true in every season. Hello everybody, I'm so glad you're here. Before we get started today, I need to warn you ahead of time about the potential for a few Wi-Fi wobbles and internet incidences ahead. Don't worry, it's me and not you, but I promise it does get better. And I encourage you to keep watching or listening to the end as Lindsay Dianne is so charming and I just know you're gonna love what she has to say. So sit back, relax, don't worry about the glitches, and enjoy today's podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Well-Tended Life. I'm your host, Carrie Wilt, a speaker, writer, and heart cultivator who is on a mission to help you grow through anything. I'm today with my special guest, Lindsay Dianne, who has graciously agreed to come and talk to us about the joy, goodness, and growth that is happening all around her. Now, this series was inspired by the words of my great-great-grandmother in her famous book, The Secret Garden, when she wrote, Mistress Mary always felt that however many years she lived, she should never forget that first morning when her garden began to grow. And when I read this for the first time, it made me think, I don't want to forget either. I don't want to forget all of those little bits of goodness and growth and joy that are growing up all around me. And so in turn, this quote ended up basically inspiring a morning practice for me, where in my journal each morning, I take a minute to look back and reflect on the day before, and I write down one bit of joy that I saw, one bit of goodness that I'm grateful for, and one little spot of growth that I've seen. For me, it has been the lifeblood of my morning practice because sometimes when life is moving too fast or the storms get crazy, knowing that those things are there even if gives you hope for today and for tomorrow. So, but I also recognize that these things aren't always easy to spot in your own life, especially when you're not in the practice of looking for them. And so what I did is I invited my friends, people from all over the country. Some people I actually am just meeting today, like with Lindsay Dianne, but I've invited them to talk about the joy, goodness, and growth in their lives in hopes that you'll start to see that same thing reflected in yours. So let's dig in. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to meet you. As with many of my guests so far, I met Lindsay virtually on Instagram. when I follow the Secret Garden hashtag, and she put together this really lovely video of a reading from the Secret Garden, and she incorporated music and on these beautiful videos and photos. And I thought, you know what, she's got something special going on over there, and I want to know what it is. So why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself to the audience and who you are and what's going on in your charming life.
Oh, thank you. So yes, I'm Lindsay Dianne, and I'm actually originally from California, but I am now living in New York in a cottage in the countryside of Sleepy Hollow, actually. And I live there with my Swedish husband.
Which all of that doesn't even sound real, right? You live in a cottage in Sleepy Husband with your Swedish husband, and is Sleepy Hollow is a real place?
It is.
I don't think that ever occurred to me.
A lot of people say that.
Where in New York is that?
So we're in the Hudson Valley. It's pretty much, right above New York City. So the Hudson River just kind of goes up along the side of New York. And so yeah, we're just kind of right above New York City area. And it's nice because a lot of people picture New York as being, super populated, which it is in New York City, but the countryside is actually very, very beautiful and idyllic. So especially near Sleepy Hollow and along the Hudson River.
How long have you lived in that area?
3 years now.
Okay. And what took you from California to New York? Was this marriage or?
It is quite the story, actually.
Well, so we are here for stories.
So that's a lot of what my husband and I talk about on our blog, which we call It's a Charming Life. And because we do have so many stories to tell from being an international couple, what it's like to, we've lived in Sweden and California and now in New York, and all of our adventures. We have quite a few stories to tell about all of that. But basically, we ended up in New York as a job opportunity, and just kind of one thing led to another. My husband is actually a professional pumpkin carver and artist. So it just kind of...
also, there's just what? That's amazing.
Yeah. So we really fit in here in this area.
Okay, so how does someone, I know I'm totally interviewing you, but how does someone become a pumpkin carver professionally?
Right, well, he's already a very gifted artist, and when we first moved from Sweden to California, we were looking for jobs, and I saw a listing that was looking for artists, and it was for pumpkin carving. And it was this production company that puts on a whole pumpkin show, and they have artists carve real pumpkins, and they put hours and hours of detail into these pumpkins that they light up beautifully. And then the company actually is based in the Hudson Valley, and we ended up on the East Coast, and he's been working for them. This will be almost his 6th season with them.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's really cool. And so just with the pumpkins and the Sleepy Hollow, we have a lot of, fun stuff going on here in the Hudson Valley.
Well, and for those who are not watching this on YouTube today and are just listening on the podcast, you would see that Lindsay Dianne is, she's dressed in this beautiful vintage dress, and she herself has this charming way about the way she looks and carries herself. Can you describe that a little bit, your lifestyle?
Sure. Yeah, so our blog is pretty much centered around our vintage lifestyle here at our cottage. The cottage itself is from we think the 1920s or 30s, and so we like to decorate in that kind of way, but also mix in influences from the fairy tales that we like as well. So the Charming Life name is kind of twofold, meaning it's vintage, but also kind of fairy tale at the same time, kind of that Snow White feeling, which is one of my favorite stories. So. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, and have you always fancied this era or the vintage clothing and dress up and all of those kind of things since you were young, or is this kind of something that has blossomed out of this relationship and as you've grown up?
Well, I grew up watching black and white movies with my family. We just were kind of raised on that. Yeah. So from the beginning, the 30s and 40s were some of my favorite era movies. And then I always wanted to dress this way, but I was never always in a life situation where that would work out for me until in the past couple of years I've finally was able to start dressing this way, and I feel like it's just like the inner reflection of what my soul feels like.
And it's clear this is not a costume for you. This is you presenting 100% of who you are on the inside.
Yes.
What is it that there's something about those time periods, things were slower, more purposeful, you had fewer things. Is minimalism a part of the lifestyle that you lead also?
That's a great question. I would actually say, as during this quarantine time, my husband and I, we've had our full-time jobs, but they both closed, and being able to really just live this cottage life took us to the next level of like vintage lifestyle, because we were, I learned how to create my own stock from veggie scraps, and learning how to garden and use herbs, and having all my mason jars full of little things. And so yeah, I definitely think that living a vintage lifestyle lends itself very well to living a sustainable and mindful lifestyle as well. Of course, I don't support some of the old-fashioned ideals, but the fashion and the mindfulness is definitely something that we really love to do.
Are you? I don't support the underwire stuff either.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wear any of that kind of stuff, but I gave that up a long time ago.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
I don't like anything that's pokey.
Exactly. There's so many things that, as the more that we can go into this lifestyle, and it takes time to, find the things at thrift stores or build up your wardrobe and the decor and appliances that you have, to realize that a lot of the old ways were really, almost better in a way, even if they take a little bit longer.
Well, and they were built in a way also to last. So much of the clothing and even the things that we use in our kitchen, you made that reference. Today they're built to break, so that you'll go buy the newest and the latest, greatest model. We own a restaurant, I was telling you off air, and we have a big walk-in cooler that's from the 20s.
Oh,
and that thing still has the same motor. Like, it just keeps ticking, and it just needs some maintenance and some love every once in a while. But I'm amazed, they were built better. Everything was built better back then, for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like that. Now, I don't know if you know much, well, you know about my great-great-grandmother clearly, but she was also a fashion aficionado. Like, she was all about dresses and hats. One side of the family called her Aunt Fluffy, because she had these ringlets of red hair and these big, fluffy, outlandish hats. And she was kind of ridiculed in the press, actually, for her fashion statements. But she kind of just went, you know what, I'm gonna do me, and kind of thumbed her nose up in it. And she did all the things that back then you weren't supposed to do. She wore makeup, she dyed her hair, she went out into public unescorted. How dare she, back then. But fashion was definitely something that she held on to. And I think that's part of probably her creative, and another piece of her creative side coming out.
Oh, wow. I didn't know all that. That's so beautiful.
So fun. Okay, so talk to me about what's going on in your life right now. What season are you in? Clearly you just got married a few years ago, or
we've actually been married almost 8 years. But
okay, almost 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So what does life look like for you right now? What kind of season would you say you're in?
Yeah, so like many others right now, it's a very interesting season of life. But like I said, we lost our jobs during the COVID breakout here in New York. We're very close to New York City, so we were pretty closely affected, and things are still not quite all the way open yet. And so was, day by day. It's been always an interesting to see what's going to develop. But we actually, during this whole process, it was like our jobs closed down, and it was like we realized over the first couple of weeks, like it was like a detox from the situations that we had been in. With the jobs we had were just more like to make ends meet. So we weren't really living our creative pursuits as much as we had always wished to. And this gave us the amazing opportunity to really just sit down and, write what we were wanting to write on our blog, and the book that we're working on together, and my husband to create artwork and to learn how to garden, and all these beautiful things that we never had the time for. And so it was a very, there was the stressful days though, of course, like what's going to happen. Right. But at the other hand, there was so much beauty that came out of it. And we just really it was just like a very deep soul searching thing that was happening, and coming out of it now a little bit into the light. It's like we feel more, we are who we were meant to be in a way. Just that pause on society just kind of really awakened something within us. So it's been a really beautiful, hard but beautiful experience. And I think a lot of other people are, feeling that as well.
I mean, it is, this is the story I continue to hear over and over of that stripping away, that breaking down, and then that rebirth, and the seed that is cracked, and all of a sudden, you can see the light again.
Exactly.
It's so amazing. Well, so life is it opening back up there? Are you starting to get work again, or are you still kind of in lockdown?
We're like kind of entering phase 3, I think, at the moment. Our job situations are a little interesting now. For my husband, Jonas, his job actually went out of business, and mine was starting to open up, but I actually made the decision to not return to work. It was kind of a crazy, hard decision, but after that detox happened, I just realized I want to do what I really want to do with my life, and this is no better time than the present to leap into the unknown while everyone else doesn't know what's happening either.
So. Oh, absolutely. So what is the big thing? Is it the book? Is that what the big next thing is right now on your plate? Is that what you're pulling away from or is there something else?
It's a mix of things. We kind of have a lot of little different things that we're very passionate about. My husband is, doing a lot of his artwork, and then we have our blog that we're very passionate about, and we have the book that we're writing as well. So it's hard to kind of balance all those things sometimes, especially when, some of the days are just, the news and everything is very overwhelming. It's hard to get into that headspace, but it's been definitely, stepping away from our jobs to make this decision to be more together. It just felt like after being together so much, my husband and I we're best friends. It's been such a pleasure to be together all the time, because we've been married for 8 years, but we've never spent this much time together ever. Right. So it's been so nice. And just thinking about one of us having to go back to work just felt like so crazy, like how could we be apart now? So we're going to try our best. We're kind of, jumping off into uncharted waters here and hoping that we can really make this work. And, if I eventually have to find another job, that's okay too, but I want to try.
Oh, I think you're so brave. I think it's awesome. And I hope that gives other people the inspiration to step back and reevaluate and to make those hard decisions as well. Because I think you're right. There's no better time than the present to really follow where your heart's leading you.
Yes.
There's a lot of clean slates that can be had out of this, and I think it's awesome. And I do. I think you will inspire someone by just talking about it. So let's get into why we're here, which is to talk about joy, goodness, and growth. Talk to me about what is bringing you joy in this season. I mean, I feel like you kind of talked and danced around a lot of things. We may have already even covered it, but is there something right now that is truly bringing you some joy?
Well, I can tell you something that I think some people find interesting, something we talk about on our blog as well, is something that daily brings us joy is kind of our little afternoon tea time ritual. And we're big tea drinkers, and my husband he's a great baker. He makes scones and all kinds of things. But in the Swedish culture, there's actually a whole word and culture around this phenomenon it's called fika, Fika. So we like to call it fika time, and it's pretty much like tea time, but Swedes usually drink a lot more coffee than tea, so that's kind of why it's more fika time for us. And it's just a great way to slow down and take a break from whatever you're doing. And lately it's been so nice to just sit outside and have our tea and watch the birds and those little chipmunks run around outside our garden. So that's something that's been bringing us daily joy. It's been really beautiful.
I love that. Now, when you do tea time, do you have do you get? I imagine that you get out, the silver teapot or whatever the vintage ware. Do you do it all up when you do tea, or are we talking a Black and Decker? I can't imagine, right?
Yeah, it depends on the day. I think on the weekends I like to bring out my silver platter, like you imagine, in my nice china tea pot and set, and I have my loose leaf blends that I like to bring out on the weekends. But not every day do I have all the energy to do all that. Sometimes it's just a tea bag, but we definitely, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I think that makes us all feel better. If you go follow her, you'll notice that, all the photos are just it's a fairyland. Like you want to dive in and be a part of it. But also know that behind the scenes of every Instagrammer and every blogger, there's a girl who just is sticking a tea bag and some hot water in a cup and calling it tea and fika. It's still fika, even without all the effort.
Exactly.
Because I do think that there are people out there that sometimes think that everything has to be this grand presentation or whatever it is, in order to stop down and still get the benefit of that time, right? Because really that's what it is. The fika stops you. It allows you to center yourself for a moment, to let go of everything else that's going on in your day. And you don't need all the showy things. It can truly be a styrofoam cup and whatever, as long as you purposefully take that time to do it. Oh, I love that. And I've been a tea drinker for years. I actually didn't start drinking coffee until I started writing my book 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Because I spent so much time in coffee shops that I finally felt the peer pressure. I don't know that it was peer pressure, but I was like, hey, I'm in a coffee shop. Maybe I should actually try this coffee thing. So I did, and now I'm actually in the process of trying to switch back from coffee to tea. Okay. I feel better when I drink tea. I think it does something inside. It actually hydrates you instead of dehydrates you and all of those things, but it's hard to give up coffee.
My husband would agree with you.
Yes, it's been a difficult couple weeks of me going back and forth of should I not? Anyways, all right, enough about my tea and coffee drinking habits. Hey friends, if you've powered through all the little internet wobbles and are still with us, thank you so much for your patience and grace. I know you're loving my interview with Lindsay Dianne, but I wanted to break in and tell you about the Sleepy Hollow Book Club. It's a virtual book club operated by Lindsay and her husband over at It's a Charming Life. If you are an enthusiast of anything between children's classics and legendary literature categories, then this is the club for you. And it's totally free. Right now they're reading The Wind in the Willows, and they just finished up The Secret Garden. As a matter of fact, you can still go to It's a Charming Life's social media feeds or to their YouTube channel and watch a special 1 hour about the author interview with me, where I share all kinds of inside scoop about the book and the bigger than life of my great-great-grandmother, Frances Hodgson Burnett. So after this interview, be sure to check out their blog and book club at itsacharminglife.com. I also wanted to remind you to make sure you are signed up for our weekly newsletters so that you don't miss out on what's going on here at the Well-Tended Life. So
So head on over to thewelltendedlife.com and plant your email in the subscribe box. Then each week, I'll send out a quick note to all my Well-Tended Life friends that features inside information on the growth, goodness, and general goings-on that you don't want to miss. And now, let's listen in to the goodness that blooms in the rest of this chat with Lindsay Dianne.
Okay, so let's get a little bit deeper and let's talk about the goodness in your life that you're grateful for. What are you seeing right now that something that has really out of all of this been had a light shined on it? Can you hear me?
Sorry, I know I kind of cut out a little bit.
Okay, no worries. All right, she's back with us. We're good. Okay, so I was asking about the goodness that you're grateful for. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the goodness would definitely be, I touched a little bit on like the gardening and everything that we've been able to do, but I just feel like that's really mirrored what's kind of been happening internally, watching the springtime happen here in New York and everything. It's just been really beautiful, like just learning how to even propagate herbs in water and learn how to do all these little things has just been really enriching for my soul during all of this.
So this is your first garden ever?
Well, we've lived in the cottage 3 years and we've tried to have a garden every year. The problem is that every summer we would usually go visit my husband's family in Sweden and we would have to leave the garden. And it would always be an adventure to see what happened when we came back. So sometimes we had zucchini this big, and sometimes it was completely sun scorched so this is the first year that we've really been able to tend a garden properly, and really learn. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I always tell, so I've been gardening maybe 8 years now. And I always tell my husband, I'm like, it's just one big giant science experiment because the truth is what worked last year may not work this year. I can't grow a green bean this year to save my life. Like the roly-polies keep eating it, and I can't. And I've been growing green beans since the beginning. Like it's the easiest thing to grow.
Okay.
And so it's I had to learn a long time ago to just like let it be whatever it is, and be really thankful for whatever I get out of it. Because I used to stress about it, be out there with, trying to squash the squash bugs and do all that kind of stuff. And I think as you continue on gardening, you'll find that you can almost over garden it. Sometimes you have to just let it grow and make sure you're watering it. But what do you have planted in your garden this year?
So that's very comforting to hear, by the way, because that actually makes me think that maybe it wasn't just the fact that we left it alone every time we went to Sweden. Because every time it was always different, and the weather's always a little different. And so what we have found though, that always tends to grow no matter what we do is the herbs. So this year we were trying to focus more on that and just, get more of herbs, like trying out sage and lavender and all kinds of different things. So
I have trouble with herbs because they require too much maintenance from me.
Oh, okay.
Like, they want you to pinch them and they want you to, and I forget about them except for when I want to cook with them.
Okay.
And then I'll go out there and think, well, wait, where did it go? So being in Texas, it gets really hot really fast here. And so ours will bolt fast. They'll go to flower quicker, where you have a more temperate climate up where you are probably. And I'm assuming you've got the moisture from the river and all that kind of stuff. I'll bet they're super happy where you are.
They do.
Do you cook a lot with your herbs?
I've started learning. That's the thing that this year I always had the herbs, but I was always never took the time to really learn, how do I cook with them fresh? How do I dry them? How do I use them in little herbal tinctures and things like that? So I've been trying to experiment a lot with all that. Even just putting them in water and infuse it overnight is just really so many health benefits. Yeah.
Oh, the tea. I mean, just making tea out of herbs is so simple. But it does take time, and you gotta actually take the time to harvest them and pinch them a lot.
Exactly.
Okay, so talk to me about the growth that's happening in your life. Do you have any life lessons that you're learning right now, or signs of progress, big and small, that you can share with us?
Yeah, definitely. So it was kind of funny. So speaking of how we live in the Sleepy Hollow area here, right before everything kind of went, the world seemed to turn upside down in March, we had already been planning to launch a book club. And because one thing led to another, because earlier in the year, we finally decided and kind of announced to our followers that we're going to be working on a children's book. And we wanted to keep ourselves accountable of being better readers, so hopefully we could be better writers. Also, because with my husband being from Sweden, with Swedish being his first language, it's just, it's all around going to be something that would help us be better writers in English. And just, it's fun too to have a club to talk to people about books. And so one thing led to another. So we were working on the online book club. Well, it's supposed to be an actually in-person book club in Sleepy Hollow,
right?
Because that's the name of the club. It's a Sleepy Hollow book club, and it's the bicentennial actually of the legend this year. So that was another reason why we were kicking it off. March 15th, 200 years ago, was when Washington Irving published The Legend of Sleepy Hollow in his collection of short stories. So it was all going to be great. We were launching the book club on March 15th, and then like a few days later, New York went into lockdown, and we were supposed to, like I said, it was supposed to be more of an in-person book club. So we had to kind of change everything immediately.
Right.
And we had, speaking of restaurants, we were the person that we kind of started the book club with and got the inspiration was with a restaurant owner in Tarrytown, which is right next to Sleepy Hollow. So, and she, obviously her life was completely different because of everything too. So we had a great idea. We knew we had a great idea, but we definitely had to rearrange everything to make it fit for what was happening. So it basically became an online book club all of a sudden. And we opened it up to our followers. And so we started out with the reading of the legend in March, because that's when the bicentennial official date was. But the second book, or first official, book, was The Secret Garden. So that's really fun that all connected. And yeah, it was actually my second time rereading it as an adult, but my husband's first time. And like I was saying about like that whole detox and, renewal that we went through this spring, like paired with reading The Secret Garden was like it was like a spiritual experience. I can't even express like how much it meant to us both, just to, okay, I'm not going to cry. I get really emotional.
You'll be my first guest to cry. Don't be my first guest to cry.
No, no, it's a happy cry.
No,
I know.
Please. Well, finish.
Oh yeah, so just because, reading it together as we were experiencing all these awakenings inside of us, just felt like Mary and Colin, just coming to life, and just kind of that shedding of all the stuff that we didn't want in ourselves anymore. So it was, this book club started out as something that was just going to be, friends chatting about books, but it just really already has become something really personal and life-changing in a way.
Wow. I love hearing that. There's a reason that The Secret Garden is still around today. Absolutely. There's a reason that people continue to read it. And for me, it was the same. I mean, I actually didn't, believe it or not, I didn't read The Secret Garden until I was almost 40.
Wow.
I grew up watching the movie, and I'll tell the whole story at some point on another one. But it was a book for me that also made me realize that I was buried in busyness and on all the things that I wanted to do. I couldn't even see them because I was just covered in weeds. Oh, wow. And I knew then that that I just had to do exactly what Mary and Colin did, which was get up and go to work every day. Like get up and tend to my life and tend to my garden and pull out those things that, you know, were choking out the things that I was supposed to grow. And, but what I love about the Secret Garden is that there's something in there for everyone. You know, sometimes I think it gets positioned as a girl's book. You know, girls seem to gravitate to it. I think maybe just because there's flowers. But your husband is very, I mean, I have men come up to me all the time and say how important the book was in their life as well. Do you think, had you kept it just Sleepy Hollow, do you think that your book club would be doing what it's doing now? I mean, you know, do you think you gained more people and affected more people by being able to do it online?
Absolutely. Yeah. The book club grew really fast. We were surprised. Well, especially because a lot of people wanted to read more. It was amazing to see that, you know, there's some people like practicing their baking and doing all these things that just those old fashioned vintage kind of things that should be everyday things. Everyone wanted to bake bread and read books and, you know, make candles. And it was beautiful to see. And so definitely we saw that a lot of people were very excited so the timing was a little crazy, but also perfect to start a book club. Yeah.
That is so exciting. So what is the next book that you're doing? Are you in the middle of a book right now?
Yeah, we're doing Wind in the Willows right now.
Okay, so we're actually recording this one at the end of June. Will you have a new book for July?
So it's still very much work in progress.
Okay.
So we're
no
supposed
pressure.
to be reading.
No pressure.
Yeah, like I said, you know, it's just we had one plan in mind and it's just been a big adjustment, but also at the same time, you know, the people that are reading with us give us a lot of great ideas. And so it's just kind of like, that's what a club's all about, right? It should, you know, just making it all work and grow together.
Well, and if we've learned anything in this pandemic time, it's that we don't really know what the next month is going to kind of garner for us, right? So I know I've been holding things a little bit more open-handed in what, you know, the next thing is going to look like or be, because we're all having to kind of pivot and change and morph. And I love that you've got now a group of people too that are helping to do that as well. Goodness gracious. I'm so glad. This was so fun. Thank you so much for coming and sharing about your joy, goodness, and growth today. I can't wait. I know there'll be pictures of her. I want everybody to see how stinking cute she is in her vintage garb. But you know, what she stands for is that, you know, that slowing down and, you know, just really being true to who you are and taking, you know, a little bit of the charming life with you probably wherever you go. And I think people will benefit from following her. Can you give us a little bit about where they can find you, follow you, get your blog, all those kind of things?
Yeah, so you can. Thank you, by the way. That was a beautiful description of charming life. It makes me happy when others just kind of grasp the concept. So yeah, because we want everyone to be able to be inspired for their charming life as well, you know. So you can basically find us on It's a Charming Life on anywhere. But our main platforms are Instagram, on our blog, and YouTube channel.
Awesome. Yeah, so they've got some really beautiful videos and things like that. So go check all of those things out. Thank you, everyone who's been watching on YouTube or listening to us on the podcast. We are so glad that you're here. My hope is that someone today out there heard this interview and that you now have a fresh set of eyes through which you can see the joy, goodness, and growth that's happening all around you. Because even when it doesn't seem like it's there, I promise it's there. You just have to train your eye to see it. So until next time, y'all, blessings and blooms. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Hey friends, thank you so much for your patience again and powering through all of our Wi-Fi wobbles and issues. I had so much fun talking today with Vintage Life blogger Lindsay Dianne about the benefits of fika time, the cleansing power of this pandemic, and how her vintage lifestyle is helping to keep things simple. To learn more about Lindsay Dianne, go to itsacharminglife.com and follow her by the same name on Facebook, Instagram, and check out their YouTube channel by the same name. And you don't want to miss our next episode in this series about joy, goodness, and growth as I interview one of my favorite people in this whole wide world, my friend and writer, Danielle Davies. During our time together, she chats with us about learning to do one thing really well, how she's managing all this together time, and challenges us all to veer off the comfortable path more often. So make sure to follow The Well-Tended Life on Instagram and Facebook, and subscribe now to our podcast and YouTube channels by the same name. And until next time, y'all, blessings and bloom.